Greetings and welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm your host, Jim Wiggins. If this is your first time tuning into our program, allow me a few moments to introduce what we're all about. So what exactly is Cybersecurity Today? Well, it's a show designed to explore the realm of computer security in a stimulating and insightful way. Cybersecurity Today is a half-hour broadcast utilizing a talk show newscast format discussing the themes, issues, and current events in the cybersecurity space. Our mission with this program is to dispel the murkiness and complexity often associated within the cybersecurity field. For our viewers who are already active professionals in this sector, this show will deliver a pulse on the current state of affairs. We feature a variety of esteemed guests to delve into topics that hold significant relevance to the cybersecurity landscape. Our objective is to offer information to a diverse audience, from the beginner to the industry veteran and everyone in between. You're sure to gain fresh insight into cybersecurity. All right, let's set the stage and discuss the structure of the show. This will help you understand what to expect today. Today's show is divided into two parts. Our first segment, known as Cyber Bites, covers current events unfolding in the cybersecurity sector. Some of these developments might be familiar, while others may be entirely new to you. Then in our second segment, we welcome Mr. Nicolas Chaillan, the founder of Ask Sage and former U.S. Air Force and Space Force's Chief Software Officer. Nicolas is here to share his insight into the impact of generative artificial intelligence on cybersecurity. Given his expertise and experience, his contributions in this field, Nicolas's perspective will undoubtedly offer enriching and valuable insight. So whether you're seeking to understand the latest developments or aiming to fortify your cybersecurity measures, our discussions with Mr. Chaillan promises to be engrossing and informative. We're excited for you to join us on this exploration of generative AI's evolving role in cybersecurity. Let's get into the Cyber Bites section. In current news, a new ransomware variant known as Big Head is disguising itself as Windows updates and Word installers, according to the reports from cybersecurity firms Fortinet and Trend Micro. The ransomware encrypts a victim's files after they click on a fake Windows update alert. It can also steal browser history, directory listings, product keys, and network information, with most samples of this ransomware originating from the US, France, Turkey, and Spain. To protect against such attacks, experts recommend avoiding suspicious emails, using reliable antivirus software, backing up files on external hard drives, and keeping software updated. Remember, paying a ransom doesn't guarantee the retrieval of stolen files, so prevention becomes paramount. In other news, Chinese hackers are suspected of exploiting a zero-day flaw in Microsoft's cloud environment to gain unauthorized access to senior US official emails in the US government. Microsoft traced the issue to a validation error in its code, enabling the attacker to use an inactive signing key to forge Azure Active Directory tokens, a method considered highly advanced due to its reliance on Microsoft's non-public internals. The United States Department of State and Commerce were among the victims, though no classified systems were breached. While Microsoft has fixed the flaw, it urges organizations to enhance their cybersecurity postures through robust logging and monitoring. The group behind the attack, dubbed Storm 0558, is believed to be linked to China. Those are some of the more current headlines making news in the cybersecurity industry. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our guest, Mr. Nicolas Chaillan, the founder of Ask Sage and the former U.S. Air Force and Space Force Chief Software Officer, to discuss the impact of generative AI on cybersecurity. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes.
Here's something we bet you didn't know. Nearly half of all cancers can be prevented, mostly by making changes in your diet, controlling your weight, and of course, by not smoking. Visit prevent50.org and get a free 30-day planner filled with tips, recipes, and more.
Welcome back to Cybersecurity Today. Have you heard about artificial intelligence platforms such as ChatGPT from OpenAI or Bard from Google? Are you wondering how it will impact your job, your organization, or your community? Have you thought about how it will impact cybersecurity and the protections that we look to in protecting organizational information and critical resources? In this next segment, we've invited Mr. Nicolas Chaillan to come onto the show to discuss the impact of generative artificial intelligence on cybersecurity. Nicolas is the founder and CEO of Ask Sage, an AI-driven solution provider that specializes in assisting government and commercial teams with data analysis, insight, and factual answers. A renowned technology leader and entrepreneur, Nicolas has over 22 years of experience in the tech industry, including serving as the first chief software officer of the U.S. Air Force and Space Force. He is also a serial entrepreneur and is the founder of 12 companies. Nicolas's expertise in cybersecurity, cloud computing, DevSecOps, and software enables Ask Sage to address the unique challenges and requirements of its clients. The company's AI-powered platform is able to ingest custom data up to CUI or FOUO, tap into APIs, and connect to data lakes for real-time insight delivered in the form of human-like responses. This helps teams make informed decisions, improve efficiency, and reduce costs. I'm excited to welcome Nicolas to Cybersecurity Today to discuss the future of generative AI in cybersecurity. He's going to share insight on how AI can be used to improve the security of government and commercial networks and how organizations can mitigate the risks associated with AI adoption. Nicolas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I've talked a lot about your background, but we often usually like to start with the guest maybe providing some additional narrative. Can you kind of spend a little bit, just briefly, talking about your background in AI, cyber, and also information technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I moved here about 12 years ago. As you can tell with my French accent, I was born in France, founded my first company, I was 15. I'm 38 now. So, really, when I sold my 12th company, I wanted to make a difference. And I really thought about what could I do to bring the knowledge of cybersecurity and software innovation in the government to accelerate innovation. And so we partnered with first DHS, and I was the first special advisor for cybersecurity and chief architect at DHS. And then, like you said, created this new office, the chief software office in DoD, to bring DevSecOps and modular software abilities to accredit software multiple times a day, up to 21 times a day for weapon systems. So that was kind of a game changer for programs like F-35, GBSD, and kind of disrupting the way we think about security, but also bringing the ability to balance innovation, compliance, and security.
So we talked about the term generative AI. Can we start there and maybe have you define how you describe it to your customers?
Yeah, so generative AI is effectively a somewhat newer kind of artificial intelligence that effectively is trained on a vast amount of data, a lot of content, and it's effectively generate text. And it may sound smarter than it is, and sometimes it's able to pretty much replicate human thoughts, but really it's not really intelligent, right? There's no piece that's putting us at risk in terms of taking over the world. It's not capable of differentiating, different ideas or different thoughts. What it's very good at doing is predicting the next letters. And so when you're writing something, it's able to effectively make it look like a normal piece of text. But when you take that to the next level, you can start training your data, you can start augmenting it with your organizational, knowledge base and information, and then really opens a whole new set of things where we see now, use cases in software development, in cybersecurity, in acquisition, contracting, legal, medical. Really, it really empowers people to get access to a vast amount of data, but also we have to be careful about whether or not the system is factual. Is there any bias into the training data? Where was it trained? By whom? Who has access to that training data? Who has visibility to what data was used to train the model, to then be able to provide the information you're receiving? And is it factual or not?
Understood. Thank you. Since our focus of our show is so much heavily focused on cyber, can you talk a little bit about how you see or envision generative AI playing in the cybersecurity landscape, maybe both today and maybe in the near future?
It's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be one of the biggest disruption we've seen in the industry. I think not only because it's so inexpensive and widely accessible, many open source models now are available and you can run them with very basic GPUs. And so the barrier to entry, even for malicious actors, are very, very small. In fact, you've seen several applications on the dark web released that are enabling people to create malware and be able to start, discovering networks and use the AI to automate steps. One of the things that's so interesting with these new models is their ability to code. And so it's not just writing a piece of text. Now it can actually write code that works. But then you can take this code and run it and execute that and have it do the work. So you can effectively delegate tasks to get access to information, scan networks, start looking at, potentially, finding CVs inside of systems. And so it's a great way for malicious actors to automate a lot of the discovery phases. And I'm pretty sure, moving forward, it's also going to be used to then laterally move into networks and find crown jewels. And so you can think of a world where this kind of technology can effectively be automated to replace hackers. On the other side, you're going to find the same thing on the defense side, where you can start analyzing logs and telemetry and looking at behavior, looking at detecting potential malicious activity proactively. Of course, in coding, we use it to scan code and look for performance improvements, look for all that static code analysis world where these scanners used to be able to do a pretty good job, but now these models can find things that even the best scanners are not able to find. So really, it opens the door to a whole new set of automation that even a year ago people thought would not even be possible.
So I love the fact that you kind of compare and contrast the negative side and the positive side relative to cyber. Can you now talk about some of the challenges that you envision that the cybersecurity space now has to think about when it comes to generative AI?
Well, the biggest thing was to make sure that we can use it with our company's data, because if you've seen the news, there was a lot of different incidents where companies and employees would put data into ChatGPT. And if you don't pay for it and you use the default version of ChatGPT, the data gets trained into the model. So effectively, you're teaching, the product becomes your data, right? Nothing is free in life. People often forget that. And so when you use these kind of free services, effectively you're giving away your data in exchange of the service. And so you end up finding your IP and your code and whatever it is you ask trained into these models. So the first thing we had to do when we created a product for government teams and companies was to create the security layer to protect the data and make sure that, one, the model is not learning from the data. Two, there is no human to assess or review your prompts and responses to make sure that no human can potentially use that outside of work. Three, no log and telemetry of those questions and answers, so that there's no ability of retention of any kind of data at rest, right? So that was kind of the baby step. And then we had to build a capacity to label data, right? So when you train the model, you want to be able to decide who gets access to what and when. You don't want everybody to, even every employee of your own company don't have access to everything. So you want to be able to enforce need to know by using labels. And so we created a label-based access control stack that effectively enables you to label data down to the cell level, right? So you could say that's PII, PHI, that's maybe CUI for the government, FOUO, right? And then you can decide who gets access to what and when, with label that effectively can be applied to one piece of data, 10 pieces of data, right? Doesn't matter the size. You want to ingest a PDF, you want to ingest a policy, you want to ingest a patent, right? You want to be able to separate who gets to see what and when, and that's what we had to build with the cyber stack and the assessment layer, the proper review process to access, to manage the access control. That's kind of the baby step to even get started.
And so what you've been then talking about is the Ask Sage platform, correct? Because
Right.
I want to make sure that for our audience, they understand that currently today, one of the big challenges with generative AI is those controls that you just discussed don't currently exist in the kind of traditional, I'm going to go out to ChatGPT or Bard,
or Bing.
I'm going to put my, or Bing and put my information in. What you're talking about is a piece of middleware almost, or a
Right.
kind of a middle piece that you sit between that customer and that particular platform so that their information doesn't get disclosed. Can you speak to a moment about any high profile situations that have happened in the last, let's say, 12 months where some organization has inadvertently put their information in and effectively what you're talking about could have helped mitigate that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of them that I'm sure we don't know. Because it's very difficult to find out what was ingested, not ingested. You would have to query the bot to ask, hey, do you know about this thing? So only the companies would already know. It would be pretty difficult to find out. But there was a pretty big announcement, and Samsung was a big one, right? Where some employee decided to ask questions both of with IP and coding and source code, and that got ingested, and then people started asking questions about the code, and they were able to get a copy effectively of the entire code base. So that's a problem, and that's what people fail to realize. Your data became the offering for OpenAI at the time because you get a free service, so you get what you pay for, I guess.
Are there any controls built into the platforms today to normalize or sanitize or prevent that information from being shared with the language models?
Yeah, so the way we've done it with Sage is we didn't even have to do that because effectively we deployed OpenAI on Azure FedRAMP High region. So we have a dedicated endpoint for Sage. When no one else has access to, it's dedicated to us, and we have the ability to control who gets to see when and when. And the data is never trained into the model. So the way we actually do training is what we call embeddings. And embedding is pretty complex, but effectively you have two ways to train data. You have a fine-tuning way, so you have a model, you can fine-tune data into a model. That is effectively almost never used because one, you would use this if you want to train a new language. Let's say you want to train French to a model that was not trained on French, right? You could fine-tune French content to augment the model capability, but you would not do that to just train, on the DoD policy or some kind of organization PDF. That's really used, that's when we use embeddings, and the way embeddings work, it's on top of the model, so it never gets into the model. So then when you ask a question about a topic, what we do is we look into this database of content, and we say, okay, what is the closest match to this question? And we return like the top 5, 10 results to the model. The model just uses it for the response and forgets you even taught it. So it's never ingested into the model.
So let's talk for a moment about how you envision organizations using generative AI. You talked a little bit about it from the offensive and the defensive side, but I'm curious about it from a research perspective. Do you think there are specific uses of generative AI so that organizations can start to kind of brainstorm or think about how they want to address cybersecurity in terms of protection of their information assets?
Well, I think most research moving forward will have to be driven, with LLMs. Everything we do, with Sage, if you look at our logo, our front end, back end, all our DevSecOps, cybersecurity, all our NIST documentation, all our GDPR documentation was actually written by the bot, right?
Okay.
So, we had a quote when we created the company to go through FedRAMP High, and it was $300,000 to do that in 6 months. We've done it in 7 hours for $250 with GPT-432K, which is 80 pages of prompt. So you can imagine it's going to completely disrupt kind of all the basics of compliance. But then every time we innovate,
Hold on a second. Stop for a second. If you could. So is that because it's able to shorten the time it takes to generate all that documentation?
Yeah. So we went through 1,200 controls, right? So NIST 153, right? You had Ron on the show, so he wrote them. We taught Sage itself about Sage and how we architected it, how it's secure, what kind of tools we're using, where it's hosted. It took us a day to write this stuff just to explain what kind of tools we're using, right? But then it's able to project and answer. It knows when to use which tool for what control based on the context of the control. So you say, okay, fill the NIST implementation details for control, AC-2. It's able to write the implementation detail completely automatically. It was 96% accurate. I can tell you the 4% is just me being picky because no one would have known the difference.
Sure.
But it took 7 hours to generate the 1,200 controls.
Wow.
Right? And in a way more detail than any human would have spent the time to write the stuff, because he doesn't care about feelings and emotion, writing the same stuff again and again, right? Being redundant. He's just going to tell you what he thinks, right? And what is facts. And in these use cases, we find it not to hallucinate and make stuff up, right? Because it knows the training and it knows what's applicable, and we say stick to the facts and stick to what you know, right? So it's not making stuff up. And so, that was kind of the baby step, right? And then when you look at all the research we're doing, all the new features, a good example is, like every company serving the government, we had to support, PIV and CAC authentication, smart card authentication. That feature, I've known companies charge the government, hundreds of thousands of dollars to build the feature, although it should be open source and easy to do, but it's not. And so, we asked the bot, like, how would you do CAC authentication using Kubernetes, and he gave us the code, and the code worked out of the box.
Wow.
In like seven minutes, right?
7 minutes. Yeah. It saved you quite a bit of money, it sounds like, too.
I mean, it's probably 2 weeks of work for 3 people, and it's just the fact that he knew this very specific government use case was pretty mind-boggling, because this is not the most common, we ask it to write, code to tap into the SendGrid API or whatever API. Those are pretty common, and you understand that the bot should know about that kind of stuff. But, when it comes to government very specific things, and the fact that he knew about it and right out of the box worked, that was a game-changing moment. And then the next step was to say, okay, how about we start tapping into databases and APIs and real-time data, right? Because you can train the bot data that's kind of stuck in time, right? You're kind of you don't have the ability to keep updating that. It's pretty painful, right? But if you can just tap into an API and ask a question and get the answer, and then train the bot on demand, so weather and everything else. So we started with FAA. We did that integration to the weather for the airport, and so you started there, and then we started to say, okay, what if the bot can actually ask a database, right? What if we connect it to Postgres or MySQL or Elastic, or pick your poison, right? It's able to scan all the schemas, all the tables by itself, no training. And then, you ask a question like, show me how many, users I have in the United States in April. And it's able to convert that, plain text question into a SQL query and run it and get you the answer.
Wow.
And we did.
Powerful.
And by the way, if the query doesn't work, we tell the bot to self-reflect on its own error. And we give the error message to the bot, and it fixes its own mistake.
Wow, that's powerful. It's powerful. So I think you're kind of alluding to this already, but when you look into your crystal ball and you look into the future, how do you see generative AI evolving, and how do you think it's going to impact the cyber landscape beyond all the data points you've already talked about? Compliance, shortening life shelf or time expectancies to get stuff done. Are there other areas where you kind of envision that they're going to have a disruption change within the cyber market?
It's pretty scary. I think people vastly underestimate the impact. Many companies started to ban it. I think that was pretty short-sighted. Right? Instead of trying to find a way to use it and make it secure, which is what we did, right? So if we could do it, someone else could have done it. I think the impact on jobs as a whole will be tremendous. We're gonna regret making fun of the blue-collar jobs, because I can tell you those are pretty secure, and we should have done better staffing, plumbers and electricians. But I can tell you the disruption when it comes to full stack developers, cyber compliance teams, even SOC engineers. A lot of it is going to be automated, and any job that effectively can effectively be automated very rapidly, you're going to see a pretty fast adoption of the technology at first, with human validating the results. But it's like anything in life, right? It's just like self-driving. I used to drive 2 hours each way to the Pentagon with a Tesla, and at first, you're worried about it, and then after 2 years, 3 years, not having to take over once, you start trusting, the system. So you wouldn't be surprised if after a couple of years, people then not get removed from validation of the process. And so I would think that the low entry jobs, the redundant automatable jobs will be vastly impacted. And what's even more scary, if you compare with automation in automotive, right? The big difference is the machinery was super expensive, right? The barrier of the cost and the learning of deploying them and scaling that was pretty painful. Still happen, by the way, right? Tons of jobs got replaced by machines. This is $20 a month, right?
Understood.
And so the adoption and the ease of access and the convenience is right there. I already know people that lost their jobs because of generative AI already now. So I think the most important for people is to say, okay, you cannot put your hand in the sand and hope it's going to go away. The genie is out of the bottle. Bad guys are going to have it. So if we want to even be able to have a chance to keep up with the velocity, by the way, the velocity on average increase that we see from people is between 15 to 25x, not percent, 15 to 25x. So one person turning into 25 people. If you don't have it, you're completely irrelevant. You're not able to compete. Right? China already has received access to their Beidou GPT across all their government fabric. We're still fighting with CUI here. Meanwhile, they have more people. They are already faster, and you're going to compound that with AI. So we really don't have a choice. This is not a game, and so people dismissing it or hoping it's going to go away, those are the first ones that are going to lose their jobs. But worse is, you have no chance to be able to keep up. It's, the velocity of this field has been unequaled. I've never seen in my 23-year career a velocity where every 6 months the whole landscape is different. You have to reinvent yourself. It used to be, 10 years you used to get away, 5 years, right? And now, 2 years. Now this is 6 months.
Understood. Hey, Nick, so that's going to do it for us. So we really want to thank you for coming in and talking to us about generative AI. We want to thank our guest, Mr. Nicolas Chaillan, for sharing his expertise. We hope that you found the information in today's show interesting and that you learned something new about cybersecurity. If you'd like to learn more about cybersecurity today and track upcoming episodes, please check out our show's website at www.cybersecuritytoday.org. You can also reach out to us with questions or comments at our email, which is contactus@cybersecuritytoday.org. Thanks a lot for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next broadcast. Have a great day. Thank you.